Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host, and we've got a super interesting conversation today with Tim Hillison. Now, Tim, you are the founder of Entry Point One, but your background is incredible. I mean, you've worked in management consulting firms, you've worked with huge brands, billions of dollars in revenue, you've actually overseen sales, you're overseeing marketing, you've been a CMO, you've worked in Europe and that culture, and what you've learned about the go-to-market strategy is what we're going to be talking about today. In fact, what is a modern go-to-market strategy? But if you could expand on the few kind of touch points there that I had about your experience, your background first before we start, that would be fantastic.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So my name's Tim Hillison, and I'm the founder and CMO of Entry Point One, and we provide fractional CMO and go-to-market advisory for scale-ups, startups, and enterprises. And why all three of those? It's because I've worked across all three of those. And, modern go-to-market requires different strategies at different life stages. And I know that we'll get into that. But, I would say that in regards to my background, and thanks very much, I've had the opportunity to work at very large brands, launching campaigns and products, generating billions of dollars of revenue. I've had the opportunity to be CMO 3 times at venture finance startups at different stages from A through D. And I've had the opportunity to have various exits as well. Two things I would say about me that are a little bit off, right? I didn't grow up as a marketer going through an agency. I actually took the management consulting route where I was leading global go-to-market programs for Fortune 500 companies, where, again, and we'll talk about this later in the podcast, marketing is but one part of the go-to-market and modern go-to-market. And then secondly, I had the opportunity to lead sales and product teams as well. And I think that those are two key functions of modern go-to-market that marketing must partner with effectively in order for there to be a successful strategy implementation.
So I'm going to use that and segue into this first part because you have a very interesting perspective on like a go-to-market strategy, as kind of like we all want to have our own playbooks. Like we want to think that we've risen high enough, got enough experience in our careers that we know our approach, right? We've got the playbook. In fact, VC, PE-backed firms, one of the first things you get is a playbook, right? And here's how we create success. But as soon as we think we know how to create success, the learning actually stops or has the opportunity to stop. So tell us maybe a little bit your philosophy on playbooks as you're thinking about just to get started here about the modern go-to-market strategy.
So if we think about what a playbook is, many sports teams have playbooks where they have specific plays that they run, and a coach takes those playbooks or those plays and applies them in different situations and contexts of where a team finds themselves. In regards to business, a lot of times I think over the last year, and there was a fantastic article by John Miller that talked about the end of the old playbook. Playbook has become a very clickbaity term where a lot of people use it just to apply a band-aid of how to operate. And I personally believe that when someone says that they have a playbook, that again, and you and I were talking about this a little bit previously, does learning stop? No, because business is based on context. We're in a new macroeconomic environment. We've passed the growth at all costs era. And, whereas 2023 was considered the year of efficiency, 2024 is certainly the year of effectiveness, right? And so this means that when we apply or when we create to execute a go-to-market strategy, that it really has a lot of different contexts that we need to take into place in order to be able to execute efficiently. Macroeconomic environment is one of them, but also the resources of the company and the skill level of the employees that are there, right? the competitive rivalry that is there, the type of partner ecosystem that they have. There's a lot of these different factors that really determine what the optimal go-to-market strategy is. And then I would say the last thing is in regards to the playbook. Um, Marketing used to be there's a bunch of channels, and people would go and say, "We've got to be in all channels." It doesn't really work that way because certain channels are better for certain companies. And so a good way to burn through money is to go and be an inch deep and a mile wide. But a lot of these companies are finding efficiency, or so we're seeing so in our client base, where, it's more of a mile deep and an inch wide, right? And that is where you find we have access to what we call their target relevant market as opposed to their total addressable market.
I love that. And I love the fact that the idea isn't the more the merrier, right? Like the more we can try, the better. What we have to do is we have to apply for each company and each market and each situation its own unique playbook. And actually, you talk about the evolution and kind of the scope of the go-to-market strategy. Maybe you could get into that, and this would be a great time to segue here.
Sure. Well, let's set a little context of what we're talking about, right? Well, marketing oftentimes focuses on developing that awareness and that customer preference, but go to market aims to shorten the distance between our product and a service and the customer. And it's really important to understand the differentiation between the two because, again, marketing is part of the go to market revenue team, which is product, sales, marketing, customer success, enablement, and revenue ops. And what's interesting is that at different stages of growth, and I know that we'll go into that a little bit later, you may not have those functions, right? And so, really, it is an exercise in alignment around what that strategy is. And it really starts with the point of view. And this, is the positioning and the messaging that comes out and how it's applied equally and liberally across the organization so that people are speaking the same language and customer confusion isn't created.
And here's an interesting takeaway, like the 5 areas of the go-to-market strategy. If I asked 5 different CEOs what departments comprise their go-to-market strategy, I would probably have 10 different answers, right? So, the traditional, just the functions underneath the go-to-market strategy. But there's one thing I wanted to ask your question on here. No matter how many elements of a go-to-market strategy they are, how you define them, what's your opinion on the fact that there should be one owner to that go-to-market strategy? Like there's a big trend these days that traditionally CROs have been salespeople, right? And they still have quotas over their heads. That's like the number one thing they do. But a big trend is to have marketing and customer success and sales all under one roof, right? So that there is one plan. Like the fact that there is a go-to-market strategy, a singular versus go-to-market strategies, right? From different departments and different goals and objectives. How important is it just to have one owner inside of an organization?
I think it's quite important. From my management consulting days, we had this saying is that, there should be one point of contact because that's one throat to choke, right? And you sort of get to it that way. That said, different things for different phases, right? I do believe that at early stage companies, that the CEO is definitely the leader of the go-to-market strategy, right? I think that you know, from 2020 to 23, we saw different models where, say, a CRO would become the go-to-market head. Many people and many companies confuse go-to-market just with sales because, again, sales is producing revenue in a specific transactional way. Again, to grow sales, what do? We add salespeople, right? Marketing is that non-linear scaling factor where, and it's been shown that where companies stop investing in brand and then a quarter or 2 quarters quarters later, their sales drop, right? And so really it is the coming together of these different functions that creates that customer value. Again, bringing the customer closer to that product or service. Um, Now, it's interesting. So, Entry Point One is a certified partner with go-to-market partners, and they just launched an article earlier this week. And I was talking with Sangram and Brian, and it's about is it time now for a go-to-market officer? So we've seen ebbs and flows, right? What I can tell you is here's my point of view. At an early stage company, a CEO must lead that. And the reason is between the CEO and RevOps, excuse me, which tends to be the Switzerland of go to market, right? Focused on the metrics. Um, there can be a lot of ebbs and pulls between the team, but it's important to get everyone on the same page. And again, going back to your example of a playbook and how a coach takes a basketball team or a football team or any sports team out, everyone knows the plays. And so this is about the alignment, right? When you get to scale ups, excuse me, when you get to scale ups,
And we'll edit all this out.
I think when you get to scale ups, what's really interesting is that again, you may be developing one product or it may be multi-product. However, you're starting to build divisions. The team is growing. There could be geographic expansion. You could be moving internationally, right? So there's a lot of different things at play that require, if we were to look at effective leadership, how many people can a CEO effectively manage and run the business and do his or her job, right? And so again, that might make sense. And then you go into an enterprise business, which we call platform market fit, where they have a portfolio of products, and you could be having certain products that are in problem market fit, others that are in platform market fit. But one thing that they all have in common is that the category that they operate in is well understood by people, right? And they have a brand behind them that creates a certain set of customer expectation around how this company will perform. And that is much different than an early stage company, right? And so again, their go-to-market motions are going to be different.
Vastly different. In fact, you brought up the idea of alignment. Typically, the conversations of alignment are between marketing and sales, right? But they're really truly in one go-to-market motion needs to be alignment between all the RevOps and customer success, right? All the different elements that you mentioned before. What's the key to creating alignment? That was kind of the hidden, right, question behind, is there one leader, right? Because that's obviously one way that you create alignment. There's one plan, one leader. But in all the go-to-market strategies that you've been involved with here, what do you think is the key to actually creating that alignment?
I think that one of them is actual relationships and understanding the other's function and trusting the other person, right? Now, you asked me previously, and I don't think that I answered it completely, and so I'm going to bring it in here about the CRO being the go-to-market leader. I know a lot of great CROs that are amazing at what they do. But one thing I also have seen is certain people that when they're given this title or say marketing reports under them, it's a risk because they don't really understand marketing. They understand sales, right? And so, for example, Entry Point One, my company, we don't provide support marketing. We partner with the revenue team, and in modern marketing, we take a revenue number, right? Which is different than a support org that just is creating little marketing services for a sales org, for instance, that's leading it. And so different companies have different models of operations, right? And it really depends on how the CEO also sees marketing, right? And if they understand it and if they are willing to allow marketing to be that scaling factor. Because again, remember, when we scale sales, we hire heads, right?
Yeah.
When we scale campaigns, we go across the world, right? But one thing that we have in common is defining what that ICP is, right? And I've heard this a lot, and I've talked to a lot of my CRO friends about this. For example, I have a very technical way of doing this that involves a lot of market research. So, one of the things that I want to do is I want to involve sales as much as they can without overburdening them so that they can be focusing on their role in selling and meeting with customers to get that feedback loop going and that flywheel, right? But one of the big problems that we've seen previously, and there was a study by LinkedIn that was talking about how only 13% of sales and marketing were targeting the same buyer. So imagine going
Only
out and
13%?
target only
Did I
13%.
hear that right?
Yeah, a terrible number.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, to throw up your hands, but
Oh my
that's what
goodness.
I'm
Really?
saying is if sales is targeting one ICP and marketing is targeting another ICP, then that's a big problem. Right? And so, again, I think that when marketing builds an ICP just for marketing, it's just for campaigns, and that siloed approach isn't going to work. However, in modern GTM, what it is it's about creating that organization-wide ICP, and it flows through sales, marketing, customer success, and enablement. Everyone shares the definition. And by sharing that definition, back to what you talked about previously, Steve, that's the playbook. When the basketball players take the court and, the coach says, "Here's the play that we're gonna run," right? It's like they all understand the play, right?
Right. And you actually have a different playbook for different teams too. You know, back to
Totally.
that point. But that's a phenomenal stat. So you hit on a personal area of passion of mine, which is I think companies have deep familiarity with their ICP because we talk about them, we plan for them, we track them, right? But truly understanding their ICP more than just how our product, our tech, right, our services fit into their organization and their own personal success, right? We might be this much of their complete job and the requirements that they're tasked with, right, in order to create success in their organization. We got to understand our ICP at this level, right? And we usually understand it mostly just based on what we're selling to them. But how can we be trusted consultants? How can we be experts in their industry when all we want to do is talk about us, right? So what you're talking about here is a foundational element in terms of having the same ICP, understanding, and therefore all programs are geared towards that one ICP. I think is one of the most foundational things that you can have in a go-to-market strategy. Without it, you don't have a go-to-market strategy. You have silo goals and plans, right? So
I agree.
I never heard that before. That's an amazing.
And there's a stat that GTM Partners came up with and they surveyed, I don't know, 2 or 3,000 companies. And, it said that those that have a shared ICP are 67% more efficient, right? So, I mean, when we're talking, it's so interesting because when you see job postings now, everything is GTM. So GTM is the new shiny object, and everyone says that, but really deeply understanding it and have that expertise, right? Again, not from marketing, but I was leading these global GTM projects for Fortune 500 brands at consulting companies, and marketing was just a part of it, right? Um, that alignment and that change management that goes across to get people to work together, it's real, right? And so how do you do that at a smaller company? Because you've got a lot of really important people and you're talking about alignment. Well, one thing is for marketing to reach across the aisle, right? I mean, to lead by example. We understand that sales is out there and they are calling and they're being rejected and stuff like that. Let's mine that feedback. Let's get on the same team. Let's make sure that they understand that marketing has their back, right? That's part of that alignment. But again, when you move to customer success, customer success, which has received sort of, mixed results over the last few years too, we've seen it's not just about doing anything to help any customer. It's really understanding Well, what are our most growable customers? What are the customers that don't fit well,
Yes.
right? Because those that we acquire at an early stage may not allow us to get to where we want to go at a later stage. And again, that tightening of the ICP, which I believe should happen, at a minimum 2 times a year, right, is where you get people on the same page.
If you don't have the right ICP, and then you're landing deals, right? So on one, side of the equation, you'd be like, hey, but we're bringing in revenue, right? But then the ability of the organization to be able to service that ICP, that new customer, when they're not ideal for us. So then for our product offerings, all of our customer success strategies, we're working harder and we're not going to retain as many of them. Our NRR is going to go down, right?
Absolutely.
In that retention,
Absolutely.
the customers that we actually retain, that's our ICP, right? The ones that we can grow and retain. And so
Yes.
it,
Also, though, I would say this, at the early stage, when you really are looking at your total addressable market because you are trying to create, something that we call problem market fit. So when you are trying to really validate your hypothesis that there is a need for your product, right? For the broader
yeah,
goal, right? There's a lot of push. There's not often a lot of pull, right? And so, I understand going out and it's very ad hoc, it's very departmental focused, and you're really trying just to see where does this spaghetti stick. I get that. You
yeah,
know, as you grow, it's really all about that repeatability,
yes.
right? And that repeatability of, am I getting the same people? One problem that we have a lot in startups is that there's a star salesperson. They go out and they sell a big deal, and it's not in an industry vertical that is currently served. And so it throws the machine out of whack because people think, oh, we should be targeting that vertical. Marketing, go out and make materials, go out and do this. There needs to be a campaign, but it hasn't really even been proven yet.
Right.
Right? And so again, this is about, hey, instead of jumping the gun with one, let's see if that's repeatable. Then that could be a focus because we've got the sales talent in-house that can do that. Or maybe that's a smaller team of one marketer with that salesperson, that there's limited, materials or information, and it feeds into the overall positioning so that there's a cohesive story. But really, again, it's about that consistency. And as we move through problem market fit to product market fit, right? Really, what changes is all of a sudden we have validated that people want our product and we start seeing that demand engine firing, right? However, it's a little bit different. Instead of just going after everyone, now all of a sudden we're focusing on accounts, right? And these accounts that are within our ICP, right? Where we're able to then say, look, these are what our accounts look like, our best accounts and our best fit accounts. Those are what they don't look like. And then we're able to track metrics, right? Such as pipeline velocity, um, uh, close close one rates, right? All of those different things that then marketing and sales and customer success and product really can partner on to make sure that we drive that down and it becomes a more efficient machine.
I love it. So there's that refinement process, like you talked a few minutes ago about maybe twice a year, minimally, right? We should be thinking about the refining of the ICP. Probably something we should just always be thinking about, but formally going through that exercise, at least a couple of times a year. I've got another question on alignment.
Sure.
There's a lot of talk in the last couple of years that wasn't there before about marketing owning a portion of the pipeline,
Mhm.
owning revenue numbers, right? Where in the traditional sense, it used to be marketing, generating MQLs, throwing them over the wall, and now it's your job, pass the baton, right? You're gone. What's your opinion on the different, departments that are part of the go-to-market strategy owning revenue, like owning a portion of revenue?
I
Should
love it.
it happen?
I
Should
want
it?
a number. I mean, I always take a number. I mean, just to be candid, but for a long time, not even just the last year. I mean, last 7 years, right? I mean, and I'll tell you why. Look, as a experienced professional, right? Because we got a little gray hair here. That is, I remember when we started, off with marketing automation using Marketo in 2007. I was an early customer of Eloqua. And, one of the huge problems was, and something that I like to stamp out right away is the quality of your lead sucks, right? I mean, these are things of sales and marketing alignment. And I think that what we find is by having a shared ICP, we are able to move past name calling and understand what a real customer looks like. And we're able to go deep into the data, right, of what our current customers are at a problem market fit, product market fit, or platform market fit, and understand what are those characteristics. And that's where that feedback loop between sales and marketing is as well. But also, I would say, traditional demand gen was spray and pray. And so I get it, right? But modern marketing is really all about ABX, which is, AB account-based marketing, but it's really account-based marketing and sales, right? Or it's account-based GTM, right? If you want to call it. And this means that there is an understanding of what a best fit account looks like that we would target. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not flexibility for sales to go do their magic and bring in another deal. It just says that, hey, this is what they look like, and this is what the data says. And so when marketing is focusing on that, they should be aligned with sales and customer success, right? It's when they're focusing on something else. And a lot of times this has to do with channel creep, right? Where, there's some problems. And, the goal is, I would say this, and it's interesting. Sangram says this a lot, and I copied it from him. But, you know, a lot of times people look at prospects. Well, prospects is a crappy name because it's faceless, right? But what about a future customer where all of a sudden this person is it's a person and people do business with people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same internally. Stakeholder, what is a stakeholder? They're my internal customers. And all of those internal customers, just like my ICP, have a way of operating and have objectives and frustrations and pain points. And that's how I operate when we lead the marketing strategy for either a startup, scale up, or an enterprise. It's really about looking what's the context? How are we going to make this work? What do we need to make this work? Are the metrics that we're going to measure? And then, really making sure that that alignment takes place to create those desired results.
So alignment in a go-to-market, modern go-to-market strategy, alignment has to be one of the top focus. And the best way to create alignment is to have an absolute agreed upon definition of the ICP. Am I taking away what I'm hearing?
Yes, and I would say there's a few other things too. You want agreement on the positioning, right? You want sales to understand what the positioning is. You want enablement to go and to or even marketing if there's not enablement yet, right? To go in and teach the salespeople so that they're just not reading a deck and interpreting different things, right? It's a people again, in our hybrid world too, where we're floating heads on Zoom. It's about creating those relationships, but it's also about being able for sales to ask questions about them and to know that there's a series of materials as they go out that they can reference because it's hard what they do.
Oh, oh yeah. So I'm going to ask you one last question because we've covered a lot of territory already. But if there was one thing about the modern go-to-market strategy that you wanted people to know as a result of seeing or listening to this podcast, what would that be?
I would definitely have to say that the focus is on customer value, and customers derive value from a product in different ways. And so to just say that value is created one way is different. It's really about understanding what the customer's needs are and understanding how they're going to apply it. And I think that we see this through traditional case studies, but traditional case studies oftentimes are not enough anymore, right? And it's really about what is the, to use an overused term, what is the return on actually using that product? And how should I incorporate that into my stack, for example? Well, again, I'm working with GTM partners, and I did a webcast on this a while ago, is they're starting to use G2 data sets. So instead of one point of reference, you might have 140 points of reference. And so, really looking at how are my peers using it and why should I adopt, right, is really important. And that has to do with, you've got your early adopters, but you've also got those laggards. And so it's really about that journey that you want to make to create and build market share as a company.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for coming on and kind of expanding our definition of what is a go-to-market? How do we create a modern go-to-market strategy? What are the things that are going to align us internally, right? And that we have to focus on. And I know people are going to have questions. I was writing, you saw me a number of times when I'm over here writing down things that you were saying. If people have additional questions, would it be appropriate if we gave out a link to your profile on LinkedIn?
Sure, absolutely. Contact me through LinkedIn. My website's entrypoint1.com with the number one. And yeah, I would be happy to have dialogue about it or answer any questions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on, sharing your wisdom. We are all the benefits from it.
Thank you, Steve. It was a pleasure being on the show and having this discussion with you.